You know, sometimes history feels like a giant campfire. We huddle around it, telling stories, pretending the fire keeps the darkness at bay. But outside that firelight, always, are the monsters. Every culture has them. The Greeks had their Gorgons, the Norse, their Draugr, the Japanese, their Yōkai, monsters that whispered in the dark, stole people away. But what about the oldest civilization in the world? Mesopotamia, the land of the first cities, the first writing, the first empires. What monsters lived there? That's where we find something you've probably never heard of, unless you grew up in Iraq. A thing that lives in folklore, ruins, and whispered warnings. They call it Tantal. And if you think this is just a campfire story, wait until you hear what US Marines in Fallujah swore they saw in 2004. You're standing knee-deep in the black water of the southern marshes, lantern in hand. Your cousin hasn't returned from setting the traps. Out past the palms, a laugh. Not full. Testing. Ali, it's your cousin's voice. Or your own. Broken and bent. The reeds fold you in circles. Your own footprints turn against you. At the edge of the lantern's glow, something tall edits itself into existence. Not a man, not a shadow, a correction to the darkness. That's Tantal. The Assyrians, the Babylonians. They didn't treat monsters as fairy tales. They catalogued them, like naturalists, but for nightmares. Take this incantation from the Shurpu tablets, roughly 2,800 years old. I'll read it as translated by scholars. The Alu demon, faceless one, who comes upon men at night, who covers their face like a veil, who seals the mouth and stops the breath. He sits in darkness. He is not seen. He is not heard. He stands behind the man, but the man does not turn. He is the shadow at the edge of the fire. Sound familiar? That's Tantal. Or listen to this fragment describing the Akimu. Restless is the ghost that has no grave. He wanders in the streets. He whispers in the ears of the living. He knows the names of men and calls them into the dark. He feeds on the fear of the traveler. The line, he knows the names of men and calls them into the dark. That's word for word what Iraqis say about Tantal today. So when you hear a US Marine in 2004 say, "I swear I heard my name whispered out in the palm groves," you're listening to the same damn story a Babylonian farmer told 4,000 years earlier. Let's leave the tablets and jump to something more modern. You're in southern Iraq. The Marsh Arabs, who live among the reeds of the Tigris-Euphrates, have their own version of Tantal. They'll tell you he doesn't just walk, he waits. One old man interviewed in the 1970s said this: "When the moon is thin, he comes. We hear him laugh, long and cruel. Sometimes it is a man's voice, sometimes a woman's. He calls you into the reeds. If you go, you will walk until morning and return to the same place. Always the same place." In Mosul, mothers used to warn their children, "If you hear your name in the dark, do not answer. If you answer, Tantal will come for you." In Basra, soldiers on night watch during the Iran-Iraq War claimed they saw a tall, thin figure, too tall for a man, moving between date palms. They shot at it. Nothing. One swore the bullets went through it. Another said it laughed like a donkey. And that's another detail. Tantal mocks. He laughs at you. That laughter is the line between folklore and nightmare. Because when people say they've heard it, their voices break. You know, it's easy for us to laugh at demon lists. Silly ancients. But imagine being a farmer in 1800 BCE. No science, no psychiatry, no words like sleep paralysis. Your son wakes screaming, swearing a faceless shadow sat on his chest. Your neighbor says the same. Do you shrug, or do you name it? That's what these tablets are, manuals, field guides for nightmares, not bedtime stories, survival tools. And here's the kicker. The details they wrote aren't fantastical. They're mundane. Shadows, voices, circles, the same stuff people still report today. Maybe demonology was just 4,000-year-old data collection. 1986, somewhere on the Iraq-Iran border, 19 years old. In a trench that smells of oil and fear. You hear a laugh in the palms. Donkey-like. Wrong. Abbas? In your mother's voice. Then your dead uncle's. The voice chooses the key that unlocks you. A buddy fires. Muzzle flash. Nothing falls. The laugh slides sideways. One soldier follows it. He returns at dawn, wordless, broken. All he says is, "It knew my name." War rewires the brain. Soldiers under trauma hallucinate. Neuroscience says stress breaks perception. But here's the weird part. Why are the hallucinations always the same? World War I gave us angels at Mons. World War II gave us gremlins. Vietnam gave us jungle spirits. Mesopotamia? Tantal. Maybe war doesn't invent monsters. Maybe it just lowers the firewall. Maybe it lets us see what's been waiting all along. 2 Baghdads, one alive with generators, one swallowed by blackouts. You live in the second. Zainab, it's your mother's voice, right against your ear, except your mother snores, in the next room. The voice tries being you, your own syllables thrown back. You scatter salt, you recite the prophets, the laugh thins too wide for a mouth. Morning, salt on the mat. Nobody remembers placing it. This is what makes Tantal terrifying. He doesn't claw, doesn't bite, he steals your name. In Mesopotamian thought, names equals essence. To know the name was to control the soul. Tantal is the world's oldest hacker. He hijacks your identity. Modern people fear data theft, identity theft. It's the same anxiety. Tantal corrodes trust. You doubt even your mother's voice. It doesn't just haunt individuals, it rewires cultures. Now imagine you're a US Marine. 2004. You're 21 years old. You're from Idaho or Detroit. You're patrolling near Fallujah. It's hot, you're tired, you're carrying 80 pounds of gear. And then this happens. This is from a soldier's testimony, published years later. We were on watch, and we heard someone laughing. Not like kids, not like men, just this mocking laugh. Out in the palm groves. We thought it was insurgents. We called out, nobody answered. Then we heard our buddy's name, his actual name, called, like someone was teasing him. He swore he saw something tall between the trees. We didn't chase it. The locals later told us, that was Tantal. Don't follow it. Another Marine said this. It was like 7 feet tall, maybe more, not clear, like a shadow that moved wrong. We thought it was some guy, but when we shined the light, there was nothing. I don't scare easy, but I still think about that night. And the kicker? These Marines didn't know the folklore. The Iraqis had to explain it to them. Now, the psychologist says, come on, this is sleep paralysis, this is stress, this is exhaustion. Sure, maybe, but why are the hallucinations always the same? Why are they tall, mocking, shadow-like? Why do they call you by name? It's one thing if one Marine in Fallujah sees something, but when an Assyrian clay tablet, an Iraqi villager, and a US Marine all describe the same damn figure, don't you wonder? There's a tale from the Iran-Iraq War. a soldier, swore Tantal appeared to him in the trench one night, not as a tall, faceless shadow, but as a man sitting cross-legged, smoking a cigarette. The soldier said he was too tired to care. He lit his own cigarette and sat down next to it. The two of them smoked in silence until dawn. When the sun came up, he was alone with a half-burned cigarette still smoldering in the dirt. Was that exhaustion, hallucination, or a monster with a sense of humor? In Baghdad in the 1990s, during the blackouts, people whispered about Tantal showing up at weddings. Yes, weddings. One story goes, a tall, thin man nobody knew sat in the back, never eating, never clapping, never speaking. The music stopped, the lights flickered, and he was gone. The punchline? The old women said, well, at least he didn't dance. American Marines in 2003 told a story about a patrol outside Mosul. They swore they saw a tall figure ahead of them, always just beyond the NVGs. They followed for nearly an hour, until their GPS told them they had been walking in circles around their own outpost. One of them wrote in his journal, I guess we got catfished by a demon. From southern Iraq, a villager swore that Tantal once took the form of a donkey, but the laugh gave it away. Instead of braying, it laughed like a man trying and failing to imitate a donkey. The villagers said, that's the real trick. He's good at voices, but bad at animals. And then there's this. In 2005, an Iraqi elder was asked by a journalist if he believed in Tantal. He said, yes, but Tantal is not the scariest thing in Iraq. The scariest thing is the electricity bill. That's the thing about folklore. It adapts. Sometimes it's terror. Sometimes it's humor. Sometimes it's just a coping mechanism. But behind every laugh, every odd story, every little punchline, you can feel the weight of something much older. The shadow at the edge of the firelight, the monster that calls you by name. And if even the jokes all sound the same, doesn't that continuity make you wonder? Which brings us back to the question we've been circling all night. What if the oldest stories are the truest ones? I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button